Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that's been all over the headlines, Elon Musk and his recent endorsement of Germany's AfD party. We've got a really interesting analysis piece we're going to be looking at today, and, kind of really trying to figure out what exactly did he say? Who are these AfD people? And what does it all mean for Germany, but also kind of for the wider world as well?
Yeah, this is one of those stories where, the headlines don't really give you the full picture. So I think we need to really peel back the layers here. Look at the historical and political context.
Okay, so let's set the scene a little bit. We've got Elon Musk, Mr. Tesla and SpaceX, appearing via video at an AfD rally in Germany. And he tells the crowd that Germans need to move on from past guilt. Pretty loaded statement, right? Especially coming from, a tech CEO who isn't even German.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your initial reaction when you heard about this?
I was definitely intrigued. Germany's history is so sensitive, especially its Nazi past. They've spent decades reflecting and trying to atone for the horrors of the Holocaust. So to just say, move on from that guilt, it feels a little tone deaf at best.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like saying, okay, you've apologized enough, let's just forget about it. But, Germany's efforts to acknowledge and learn from its history, I mean, that's not just about feeling guilty, right? It's about trying to prevent those kinds of atrocities from ever happening again.
Exactly. It's woven into their education system, their memorials, even their political fabric.
Yeah.
It's not just about the past. It's about protecting the future and making sure that something like that never happens again.
So you have this incredibly sensitive historical backdrop, and then Elon Musk kind of wades right into it. It makes you wonder, why would he even get involved in German politics? Is this just some kind of PR stunt, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, if you look at some of Musk's other activities, there does seem to be a bit of a pattern emerging. He supported people like Donald Trump, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and Nigel Farage in the UK. And all of these figures, despite being from different places, they represent kind of nationalist and populist movements.
So it's almost like he's playing this global political chess game, aligning himself with these figures who are challenging the established order. I mean, is there any way to really know what his true motivations are?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Okay, so we've got Elon Musk on one side making waves with this endorsement, but now let's turn to the other side of the equation, the AfD party. For those of us who aren't, experts in European politics, can you give us a quick rundown of who they are and what they stand for, what makes them so controversial, and why is Musk's endorsement of them such a big deal? So the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, they started out in 2013 as kind of a Eurosceptic party. Basically, they were skeptical of the European Union and its policies. But over time, they've moved further to the right, embracing a much more populist and nationalist platform. They're really pushing for stricter immigration policies. They're critical of the EU. And they often question how Germany has dealt with its Nazi past.
Okay, so they started out questioning the EU, which, that's a legitimate debate to have. But it sounds like they've kind of evolved into something a bit more extreme, like they're tapping into those same anxieties and resentments that we're seeing in other parts of the world. And that makes Musk's endorsement even more concerning, right? Because it's almost like he's giving them this platform and legitimacy on a global stage.
Exactly. And it's not just about what he said. It's about the signal it sends. I mean, right now, the AfD is actually under surveillance by Germany's intelligence agency. They're worried about extremist elements within the party. And some members have even been accused of downplaying the Holocaust and promoting xenophobia. So for someone like Musk to endorse them, even indirectly, it raises a lot of eyebrows.
So we've got a tech billionaire wading into this really sensitive political situation in another country, aligning himself with a pretty controversial far-right party. What happens next in this saga? I mean, are we just watching a train wreck in slow motion here? Or is there some hope that reason will prevail? We're going to get into all that right after a quick word from our sponsor. Don't go anywhere. All right, so we're back. And before the break, we were talking about the AfD being under surveillance and some of their members being accused of, downplaying the Holocaust. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff. And the fact that they're gaining traction in the polls makes this whole thing even more unsettling. Yeah, it is concerning, but they're polling at almost 20% going into these upcoming elections. That's enough support to potentially have a real impact on policy.
Wow, 20%, that's huge. What's driving their popularity? Is it just economic anxiety and anti-immigrant sentiment? Or is there something deeper going on here?
It's complicated. Like a lot of countries, Germany's dealing with Economic uncertainty,
Yeah.
social divisions, just a general unease about the future. And the AfD is really tapped into these feelings. They offer these simple solutions, and often they scapegoat minority groups. Their message really seems to resonate with people who feel like they've been left behind, people who are disillusioned with the political establishment.
Yeah, it's a pattern we've seen in other parts of the world too, right? This rise in populism and nationalism,
Hmm.
fueled by fear and uncertainty. But going back to Musk, it just seems so strange to me that he would align himself with a party like this. I mean, he's supposed to be this forward-thinking tech guy, not someone who's dabbling in far-right politics.
Right. It does seem out of character for someone who's usually pushing boundaries.
Maybe he just likes shaking things up, even in the political realm.
I mean, maybe. It could be that he sees himself as this ultimate disruptor.
But at what cost? Is he really willing to risk his reputation and potentially alienate a lot of his customers just to make a political statement?
It's a big gamble for sure.
And the reactions to his endorsement haven't exactly been positive.
No, they haven't. Chancellor Scholz came out pretty strongly against it, emphasizing the importance of learning from history to prevent repeating it. Even the head of the Buchenwald Memorial called Musk a mad extremist, which is pretty harsh criticism coming from someone like that.
Yeah, I saw those headlines too. It definitely seems like Musk hit a nerve. And it's not just politicians and public figures speaking out. There have been protests all across Germany.
Exactly. This isn't just a fringe issue. It's something that's really affecting German society.
And it's even spilling over internationally. I mean, the European Commission is investigating potential bias in X's algorithms, particularly when it comes to the spread of misinformation and hate speech.
That's right. The EU is taking this very seriously. They want to know if X, the former Twitter, is amplifying extremist content and potentially influencing political discourse in a negative way.
So this brings up a big question. What does all of this mean for those of us who aren't in Germany? Why should we care what Elon Musk says or does in relation to a far-right party in another country?
That's where things get really interesting. Because this might seem far removed from our daily lives, but it actually raises some pretty important questions for everyone.
Like what?
Well, it really highlights the power that wealthy individuals like Musk have to shape political narratives and even potentially influence the course of events globally.
It's like they have this massive megaphone.
Exactly. And if that message is aligned with extremist ideologies, it can really have a ripple effect.
Yeah, making those views seem more acceptable. That's a pretty scary thought.
And it's not just about endorsements or public statements either. It's about the platforms they control. I mean, think about the reach of X. It's a global network where ideas, information, and misinformation spread so quickly.
So do we know if these algorithms are being used responsibly?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Are they designed to promote healthy debate and diverse perspectives? Or are they accidentally amplifying extremism and sowing division?
It's a huge responsibility.
And we need to hold these tech companies accountable.
Absolutely.
So what can we as individuals do? I mean, it feels kind of overwhelming trying to counter the influence of these massive platforms and these powerful figures.
It can feel that way, but I think every voice matters. I think we can start by being more aware of our own biases.
Okay.
Seeking out information from credible sources, and actually talking to people who have different viewpoints.
So educating ourselves, being mindful of what we share online, and having those tough conversations even when they're uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But is that enough to really counter this tide of misinformation and extremist ideologies?
It's a good start.
Ah.
But we need to go further. Well, we need to support the organizations that are fighting online hate speech, promoting media literacy, and holding these tech platforms accountable for the content they host.
Okay, so donating to those organizations.
Volunteering your time.
Yeah.
Even just spreading the word about their work.
What else?
We can also be more conscious about how we use technology ourselves.
Okay.
Be more mindful of what we share online. Challenge misinformation when we see it. And support creators who are promoting positive and inclusive content.
So using our voices and our platforms to amplify the good and push back against the bad.
Right.
And we can also get involved in the political process.
Exactly.
Contact our elected officials.
Advocate for policies that protect our digital spaces. And demand that they take action to hold these tech companies accountable.
So it's this multi-pronged approach. Individual responsibility, collective action, and political engagement.
It's not going to be easy. And it's not going to happen overnight.
But you think we can make a difference?
I do. I think if we all do our part, we can create a more just and equitable digital world.
So before we wrap up, I want to zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. How does this whole situation with Musk and the AfD reflect these broader trends that we're seeing in global politics?
That's a great question. I think what we're seeing is this perfect storm.
Okay.
We've got technological advancements, economic anxieties, social divisions, and this growing distrust of institutions. And all of this is creating fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root.
And social media has given these movements a powerful platform to
Exactly.
connect, amplify their message, recruit new followers.
They've figured out how to use technology to advance their agenda,
And figures like Musk with their huge online presence, they can become pawns in this game.
even if they don't mean to,
Their actions, even if they seem small, can give these movements legitimacy,
and normalize their views,
which is why it's so important to understand the context.
and be critical of the information we're consuming.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. The historical backdrop, the AfD's platform Musk's motivations, and the wider implications for democracy and online discourse.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
But knowledge is power.
Okay.
The more we understand these issues, the better equipped we are to navigate them and make informed choices about the world we want to live in.
So we can't just ignore these problems.
No, we have to face them head on.
With open minds and a willingness to have those tough conversations.
Exactly.
And remember, this isn't just about Musk or the AfD or Germany.
Right.
It's about the future of democracy and the values that we all share.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're at this crossroads, We've got these amazing technological advancements that connect us in ways we never could have imagined before. But at the same time, those same technologies are being used to spread all this misinformation and amplify these extremist ideologies. It's like a double-edged sword.
It really is. And I think it's up to us to figure out how to use that sword responsibly. We can't let the forces of division and hatred kind of hijack these tools that were meant to bring us closer. So where do we go from here? What can we do to make sure that technology serves humanity and not the other way around? Is there any reason to be optimistic at this point?
I think so. I mean, I'm an optimist by nature. I believe we have the power to shape our own future. It's not going to be easy, but I do think there are reasons to be hopeful. At least we're having this conversation. We're becoming more aware of the challenges. We're more critical of the information we see, and we're more willing to challenge those in power.
Okay, so awareness is a good first step. But what about action? What can we actually do to make a difference?
Well, one thing we can do is support the organizations that are fighting online hate speech.
Yeah.
The groups that are promoting media literacy and holding these tech platforms accountable. They're doing amazing work, but they need our support.
So donating to those organizations, volunteering, or even just spreading the word about what they do.
Exactly. Every little bit helps.
What else can we do?
I think we can also be more conscious about how we use technology in our own lives. We can be more mindful of what we share online, challenge misinformation when we see it, and try to support creators who are putting out positive and inclusive content.
So basically using our own voices and platforms to amplify the good stuff and push back against the bad.
Right.
We can also get involved in the political process,
Absolutely.
contact our elected officials, advocate for policies that protect our digital spaces.
And demand that they take action to hold these tech companies accountable.
So it's this multi-pronged approach again. Individual responsibility, collective action, and political engagement.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to happen quickly.
But I do believe we can make a difference if we all work together. We can create a better digital world.
Well said. And on that note, we've come to the end of another deep dive. A big thanks to our expert for joining us today and sharing all these insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic, read beyond the headlines, have those difficult conversations, and be the change you want to see in the world. Until next time, keep diving deep.